promised, we delivered. Guam AutoSpot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam AutoSpot, where the savings never stop.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.
It's me, Wednesday Addams. I regret to inform you that I have devised the meal of misfortune with Wendy's. Normally, I'd be against this type of capitalistic corporate synergy. But when the other pigtailed provocateur said I could concoct my own Frosty, I melted. My meal is tribute to the suffering that awaits us all. It's pure torture for your taste buds, with 4 nightmarish dips of dread. Don't waste my time asking which ones you'll get. You must surrender to your fate. Enjoy the anguish.
Dare to try? Something new? Life's too short!
You gotta chill with the snackable drink.
Life is too short. Hey, you gotta chill.
Mogu Mogu.
Moku moku!
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Good morning, my dear friends. It is 9:23 a.m. on Monday, September 15, 2025. My name is Troy Torres. Thank you so much for joining me. Good morning, Brennan, Maria, Teresa, and JD, my great friends. Thank you all so much for joining. Joe, are you back on Guam, or are you still vacationing in Saipan, or are you in the States? I'm enjoying all of your posts, and thank you all of you who are watching live, and those of you who will watch the replay, the thousands of you who will be watching this show and who watched the previous shows. Thank you all so much for your support, your trust, and your confidence in Kandit News, and all of your opinions. I very much appreciate it. Happy birthday to my eldest sibling, my sister Tammy. September 15 is her birthday. This is also the Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. So if you haven't had a chance this morning, don't forget to go to Mass tonight at 6 p.m. at any of the parishes here in Guam or in the CNMI. Carlos Pangilinan, the third owner of Kandit and definitely the most silent of us, says the same clowns at Guam Medical Association saying don't build in Manila were the same clowns who told Governor Calvo don't rebuild in Tumuning. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Hi, Diane Martos. I miss you, my friend. It has been years since we've seen each other. And to my friend Jason Blas, God bless you. And thank you for the happy birthday message to my sister. I very much appreciate that. So what Carlos is talking about is well, gosh, this has been going on for decades. And he's talking about doctors of the present and those who have spoken up in the past, going all the way back to the Calvo administration, which was, nearly 2 decades ago. We're nearing the end of the Leon administration, the 8 years. Governor Calvo had 8 years. So, if you bookmark these from the start of the Calvo administration to the end of the Leon administration, 16 years. And in the middle of the Calvo administration, Governor Eddie Calvo made his biggest push. And I remember this because I was there. I was on his committee. Carlos Pangilinan was a member of this committee. Carlos Pangilinan at the time worked at Guam Memorial Hospital, and he was one of Carlos was one of the most trusted financial advisors on hospital finances to Governor Calvo's most trusted advisor, Bernie Artero. And so we were all on this hospital revitalization committee. And we remember when Governor Eddie Calvo, a Republican, dealing with a Democrat legislature, many of whom are either senators now or are members of Governor Lulian Guerrero's cabinet now, opposed Governor Calvo's effort to either rebuild or build a new Guam Memorial Hospital. And Governor Calvo made it his entire thing for his second term. That was supposed to be the thing that he did. And he had a plan, and he had a great set of people who put things together and who were ready. And back then, if we had built the hospital back then, it would have been a whole lot cheaper than building it now or starting to build it next year or the year after. And Governor Calvo said so. One of the warnings that he gave to the legislature, who was pushing back so hard at the time, was, look, the longer we put this off, the more construction costs are going to go up because of the military buildup. Lo and behold, all these years later, Governor Calvo was right. Now you have Governor Lulian Guerrero trying to build a new hospital. She wants to build it in Manilao. She got, to the governor's credit, she did everything the way that it was supposed to be. She outsmarted everybody and got the Manilao thing done. That's unless the legislature is going to stop it from being built there, it's supposed to be built there. Okay, there's really no moving back from that unless the legislature wants to explain to the people of Guam the wasting of tens of millions, more than $100 million in federal funds. So, no matter what you think about where it should be, if it's rolled back at this point, we're going to be wasting a whole lot of money. So now you have this effort by the governor. It's finally going to happen, apparently, maybe, if now the Republicans, many of whom were in the Calvo administration and who experienced what the Democrats did to them, to Governor Calvo, now seem to be stepping on this cord. And it's a little disappointing. But what Carlos is talking about is that through all of these years, through all of these decades, there's been a group of doctors who have somewhat opposed, or some of them even directly, fully opposed, currently right now. There's a full opposition to Governor Lulian Guerrero building a hospital in Manilao, at least. And so this is it's never getting done. And I thought about this last night as I was thinking about all of these last weeks that I didn't even bother watching session because I've watched this whole thing on replay for decades. And I surmised last night as I was thinking about yet another emergency, yet another call with hyperbolic language from all of the different stakeholders, as most especially the politicians. And I was thinking, we watched this on replay for decades, and the problem is, this is a perfect example of there being way too many chefs in the kitchen. And it's been this way for decades. And it should have been that you have a governor who identifies a problem, and the problem is the Guam Memorial Hospital current facility has far surpassed its usefulness and its ability to provide safe patient care for the people of Guam. And that problem was identified during the Calvo administration by Governor Eddie Calvo. So you have a governor who identified a problem. You have a governor who built a solution, proposed the solution, was ready to execute a solution back in 2015, 2016. And then you had all these other chefs come into the kitchen, whether they be Democratic legislators, doctors, whoever, who wanted to take charge and wanted their vision of whatever to be what it should be, or what they wanted to develop, what all the taxpayer funds should be used for. When we already had an elected governor, very popularly elected, by the way, Eddie Calvo, who back in 2015, 2016, identified the problem, brought people together, they got a plan together, and they were ready to execute. And all the other chefs who came into the kitchen were saying no and proposing every little way to stop the solution from being implemented. Fast forward all of these years later, a decade later, we have a new governor. Well, she's not new anymore. She's on her way out. She's nearing the end of her 2 terms. But throughout the period outside of the pandemic, she has been proposing the same thing Eddie Calvo practically proposed. Let's build a new hospital. And again, all the chefs came into the kitchen. This time, both Democrats and Republican legislators. You have some Democrats who just can't stand Lulian Guerrero. You have some Republicans who, over the past few weeks, we've seen how they don't like her because of things that came up during the budget. It's mainly this debate about the taxes and all that stuff. But you also have doctors coming out or who have opposed her over the past couple of years. I wanted to highlight this morning, though. Carlos is right. Many doctors also oppose GRMC. And look, thank goodness for GRMC. And I'll tell you this, and I'll probably write an editorial about this. Every single person who has contributed to the delay in building a new Guam Memorial Hospital facility from 2015 through today has blood on their hands. And I know that that's probably a bit of hyperbole, but consider this, and especially if GRMC wasn't around, right? Imagine how many more people would have died. But consider the people in our island over the past 10 years who have died or whose conditions have severely worsened because they were unable to receive the medical care that they should have received at a proper facility, at a Guam Memorial Hospital that should have either saved their lives or provided them better health care so that they would be in better condition today. All because we didn't build a hospital over the past 10 years. And then consider all of the people who, over the next how many years, because we still are not building a hospital, we're still not as close as we should be to the construction of a new hospital. How many more people will die? And as these chefs in the kitchen who really shouldn't be there, who should be playing a more supportive role, or at the very least, if they're going to propose constructive criticism, to frame it as such and in a way where you get to a sort of solution rather than there being deadlock all the time. Every day that goes by, that these things, that we're not any closer to building a hospital, how many more people in the future will die, will be maimed, will not receive the proper health care that they should get if we had a new facility? And all of these things, and how crazy this political system is, not just with this idea of, or this program of building a new hospital, but providing proper medical care at Guam Memorial Hospital. It all sort of comes into focus when you read Dr. Vince Akimoto's op-ed this morning. And for whatever you might think about Dr. Vince Akimoto, he said things in this op-ed that are right. Sorry about my dog. He said things in this op-ed that are right, pretty right on the money, actually. I want to read it to you because if you haven't read it yet, I think it's important that you read some of this stuff. And so he likens the GMH electrical panel room, which he describes as a facility at the back of the hospital, behind the boiler or something. And anyway, it's an electrical panel system that he says is 10 feet wide and 30 feet long. It was built more than 40 years ago. The Army Corps of Engineers back in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, said that it was incredible that it hasn't died by now. And he makes the point that if this electrical panel goes down, this electrical panel system goes down, it won't matter how much power GPA is able to put into Guam Memorial Hospital. It doesn't matter that there is a generator that's able to supply power to Guam Memorial Hospital. If you don't have the electrical panel to distribute the power to the air conditioning system, to the ventilation, to the ventilators, to all of the equipment that keep people alive and that save people at Guam Memorial Hospital, then GMH will fail. You will not be able, it won't be a hospital anymore because it cannot provide life-saving emergency care, urgent care, operations, whatever the case may be. So this is what Dr. Vince Hakimoto wrote this morning. He says, there must be something terrible, some horrible monster that exists in the dark grotto of the Guam Memorial Hospital electrical room. This monster must live in the minds of GMH leadership, prowling directly below the second floor obstetrics ward and surgical operating rooms with all its laboring women and hissing anesthesia gases. Terrifying, proud, political sycophants, I could never pronounce this word, sycophants, into stupefaction. The sinister GMH electrical panel is a large, throbbing, monstrous mass of galvanized steel and a gnarly, twisted spaghetti of electric wires. During the howling midnight winds of Super Typhoon Mawar, the dysfunctional electrical panel monster awoke furiously, setting fire to the hospital cafeteria and terrorizing the poor nurses and sick patients who were sheltering at GMH during the storm. Just 3 weeks ago, the GMH fire demon again returned, this time setting the pediatric ward on fire. This is crazy. It's crazy that there's all these fires at GMH. Amidst the flames and the smoke, deathly sick children and fragile newborn babies were forced to be evacuated from the fourth floor pediatric ward. Talk about trauma. Talk about drama. The electrical panel is the breaker point where the energy generated by Guam Power Authority flows into the hospital and is funneled to every floor of the building to power the lights, the air conditioning, and all the critical medical equipment needed to keep patients alive. The electrical panel is located on the ground floor at the back of the hospital behind the boilers and water tanks. It's about 10 feet high and 30 feet long. In service for nearly 40 years, hospital officials say it's well past its prime and difficult to maintain and to find parts for repairs. GMH has a backup generator sufficient to power the hospital's needs in the event of a GPA power outage, but it's of no use if the electrical panel fails. That's because it makes no difference where the power comes from, whether it's from GPA or a generator. Without an operational electrical panel, the electricity can't be channeled to where it needs to go. For years, safety officials have warned that GMH's decades-old electrical panel is a single point of failure for the entire facility. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has declared the electrical system as dangerously decrepit and a threat to fatal failure. This isn't hyperbole. It's the assessment of experts. In fiscal year 2016, almost $50 million was borrowed from the bond market to subsidize GMH and to fix the electrical panel. The fix never happened. Over the past 10 years, GovGuam raised the business privilege tax and legalized gambling, promising to use the additional government funds to fix the GMH electrical panel. That fix was never done. This past decade, Guam's taxpayers gave more than $127 million in direct subsidies to rectify the multitude of problems at GMH, including the life-threatening broken-down electrical panel. The electrical panel problems were never rectified. Over the past couple of years, GovGuam pay raises were generously given out. Special project coordinators were made more special with fabulous cash bonuses. Plenty of 24-hour GovGuam vehicles, pickup trucks, and golf carts were purchased. The prospect of a total power failure at the hospital wasn't given as much priority, and a new GMH electrical panel was never purchased. Something sinister is preventing GMH from doing the right thing. Something monstrous is stopping the good, smart, well-paid GMH employees from fixing the electrical panel. This is not a simple case of kicking the proverbial can down the road. This is not common GovGuam deferred maintenance. No one denies the imminent fire danger at GMH and the implicit threat of the hospital exploding with hundreds of innocent lives made dead by reckless GovGuam negligence. There have been 4 documented hospital fires at GMH in the past 3 years. There has been a recent chaotic, blood-curdling mass evacuation of the pediatric ward due to a hospital fire. There is no one on earth who cannot see the clear and present danger that GMH is in. So, there must be hell-born demons at work in GMH. Only demonic possession can explain, this is the hyperbolic part, by the way, can explain the evil manifest in this GovGuam tragedy of administrative misadventures. Only evil demons would put first priority to the pay raises of non-essential government employees ahead of the purchase of a critical electrical panel. Okay, there's more here, but let me just let's talk about this. Let's talk about what Dr. Akimoto is saying. He's talking about, he's not talking about just this administration. He's not talking about just the last administration. He's not talking about just Republicans or just Democrats. He's talking about all of them. Everyone who has been involved in the political system since 2015. An absolute failure of the government of Guam and the voters of Guam and the taxpayers of Guam to replace the electrical panel. Despite all of the money that has come into the government over the past 10 years, there really is no excuse whatsoever why that electrical panel and other things at GMH have not been fixed. And so when I see the back and forth between the senators and the governor and everyone in between about the problems at GMH over the past several weeks, I'm going to call BS on every single one of them. And I really don't care anymore about all the press releases, all the statements, all the, well, he said this and she said that, and what about this and what about that? Because it has been a decade at least since this problem has been raised, since everything else got priority in the government of Guam, since our money went to all these different other things and not to replacing the electrical panel and not to replacing and doing whatever else is needed to keep Guam Memorial Hospital at its Tumuning location operational until we can build a new hospital. And that on its own is a whole other issue. And then all of the other issues in between, none of this has been prioritized. And when I see senators over these past few weeks acting surprised or blaming the administration or the governor, blaming senators, and none of them taking responsibility and acting or expressing their concern as it should be rather than surprise that these are the problems as if they've been living on Mars this entire time, I can't get behind any of them. I have to feel that all of them are full of it. Democrat and Republican, going back to 2015, because it's been a failure that long. And the worst thing about it is that it's not like it's a failure that's encapsulated and it's been the same sort of failure in this 10 years. Every day that has gone by has been a new and greater risk that more people will die, and worse, that that hospital will shut down, leaving us without emergency care except at GRMC and at Naval Hospital. And we are already at many times at capacity as it is. We can't afford to lose a hospital, to lose an entire facility, especially the island's only public facility. Carlos is saying, I didn't even realize this. I didn't realize that some of the senators were saying that the panel issues were a myth. That's like members, Republican members of the U.S. Senate, I think even Democrat members of the U.S. Senate, some of them saying that the famine in Gaza is some sort of made up myth. It's ridiculous. Who is saying that it's a myth? I would like to know who is saying that the electrical panel issue and all of the other issues at GMH are a myth, because that's stupid. Deflection, deflection, deflection. Yes. Yes. And all of them, it's not just one side of the aisle, and it's not just the legislature, and it's not just the governor. It's all of them. Every single one of them failed. Where do we go from here? Isn't it obvious? The governor and the legislature are fighting about resources. They're fighting about whether the legislature should be able to use the $100 million stored away from the ARPA funds that the governor wants to use for the Manila facility. They're fighting over whether they should take that away and use that for the current GMH. The governor is saying, why don't you just restore the taxes to 5% so that you can use that? Nobody is talking about all the waste in the government of Guam. And some people might say, well, there's not that much waste. I don't even think anyone's even really tried. Because this little operation over here at Kandit has been uncovering hundreds of thousands of dollars of waste that are contractual issues of just one business. Just one business. And we're uncovering hundreds of thousands of dollars in wasted public resources. Imagine everything else. All of the other waste going on in the government of Guam, whether it be, as Vince Akimoto says, all of these special project coordinators throughout the government, and there are many. There are many that have been hired since the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration took office. It used to be a bad word, special project coordinator, in the political lexicon. It used to be that Eddie Calvo and Felix Camacho did not want to hire any special project coordinators because it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Everybody knew that those were just political appointees, many of whom were not qualified to work in those agencies at those jobs. But more importantly, those agencies didn't even need them to operate. So you have all these personnel costs that have increased during the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration. You have all the pay raises that happened. You have all of these contracts everywhere. And where is the legislature in its oversight responsibilities to look into this waste and dedicate those funds to Guam Memorial Hospital and to the Department of Education and to the hiring of police officers and increasing pay for police officers and for teachers and for recruiting specialty nurses and doctors with salary levels that will entice them to come to this island? Why aren't those the priorities? Why do we keep fighting over this $100 million pot that's supposed to go to the building of a new hospital that we know that we need? Or fighting over tax policy when we know that we need to reduce the tax burden on our people because it's just too much? Why aren't we looking at waste? Why aren't we looking at cutting in the government of Guam so we can dedicate those funds to what's really important? And we're having this entire conversation here so we know that what's really that among the most important things that we can do is replace this electrical panel and give GMH the funds that it needs to survive. Because no, senators, no, it's not like one of the biggest problems about this public hospital is that it isn't properly funded because you guys aren't properly funding it for years, both Democrats and Republicans. This is shared blame for everybody around. And the solutions are simple. They might be political suicide, but the solutions are simple. It's just math. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. God bless you, and I hope we all have a better day with GMH.
You asked, we delivered. Guam AutoSpot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam AutoSpot, where the savings never stop.
Something new? Life's too short.
You gotta chill with the snackable drink.
Life is too short. Hey, you gotta chill.
Mogu Mogu.
Moku moku.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.